Hi, this is Brennan Davis from Bedrock Games and the Bedrock blog, and I'm here with Adam Balderstone, and we are talking about Return of Condor Heroes, the 2006 series, episodes 25 through 27. So we're starting to get kind of close to the end here. Or at least we're towards the end of the story. At least we're moving. I think we've passed the center, and now we're moving along. In these episodes, we're going to talk in depth about the individual elements, but the broad overview of what happened in these episodes is Zhao Longnu leaves and goes after Ji Bing and Ji Jing when she overhears them talking about the details of her rape, and she finally learns what happens. And Yang Guo loses his arm to Guo Fu. She chops off his arm. This is a very big plot point, which we will explore in depth, I'm sure. There's also a situation that arises where Li Mochu and Huang Rong fight over the baby, and they end up at the end of it teaming up because Li Mochu sort of proves that she's not as terrible a person as Huang Rong thought by the end, and so they end up when the baby gets lost again, teaming up to find it. And Yang Guo trains with the Divine Condor. After he loses his arm, he inherits this giant sword from Master Dugu, which he trains in, and then when he's completed his training, he goes off to get his revenge. And at the end of this series of episodes, there's a sequence that occurs at Tuanzhen sect, and the Mongols arrive and issue an edict where they're trying to form an arrangement where Tuanzhen is favorable to the Mongols because the Mongols have their territory, or sort of occupying the territory that Tuanzhen sect is inside of. And it ends with some infighting at the sect, which serves as a cliffhanger. So I don't know. Before we get into the details, Adam, how'd you feel about the story at this point?
Oh, I really kicked up dramatically. I mean, Yang Gao getting his arm cut off was not a thing I expected to happen in that scene. That was pretty amazing. It was interesting because you've got the drama going on with that. That creates not just drama for Yang Gao, but also for Fu and for her parents. Her parents end up fighting over the whole thing. So that was the huge dramatic side of the story. And then on the other side, you've got Zhao Batong doing his wacky flag stealing stuff, which also ties into the Mongolians plotting to win Kwanzang sect and get control of it. These are very satisfying episodes. I thoroughly enjoyed these.
Yeah, I want to talk about the arm, but before we get there, I wanted to get your take on when Yang Guo awakens after he's sucked the venom from the Wu brothers, and there's that sage from India who's healing him, and he says that the poisons are holding each other in check, and that's why Yang Guo hasn't died because his time is up at this point, right? He's like past the due date on the passion flower poison. And so it's I don't know, my mind immediately went to The Simpsons where Mr. Burns had every disease.
Exactly. Exactly. Dr. Nick, I think. Yeah, it's like Mr. Burns has so many things wrong with him that they all just can't get through the door.
But it was a very funny sort of solution. I mean, he's still in a crisis. He's still poisoned. It's just that he's not. As long as he doesn't think about Zhao Longnu, it seems like he'll be okay. And a very important plot point does emerge, which is the sage and Wu Zhentong decide to go and get to go look at the passion flower firsthand, because the sage says the venom and the antidote usually exist close together. So so he wants to go and find where he thinks that he can find the antidote if he goes there. And before they leave, Wu Zhentong congratulates Guo Fu on the upcoming marriage and says that he'll be there. He'll be back before it happens. And this is what sort of catapults the arm chopping scene, where Guo Fu is, number one, she's angry because the Wu brothers are now treating her differently, and they've always paid attention to her. Now they're suddenly not. And number two, everybody's talking about her marriage to Yang Guo, but apparently it's a joke, and so she's very upset about the effect that it's going to have on her reputation. And I think it's probably clear to you at this point, but I don't know if it's crystal clear yet. But I think that the thing that's really motivating it is that deep down she is in love with Yangoa, and the fact that he would play a game with the marriage is what really motivates her to chop off his arm.
Yeah, when she first hears the news from the Wu brothers' father, it seems like for a second she is kind of like intrigued by the possibility this is true. So I can see her being very upset when it turns out it is a joke, but and being the reason the Wu brother. It's like it's a double slap there. But I wouldn't say it's worth cutting his arm off, but I get why she's upset.
No, and I feel like at least, I mean, and again, and she's probably one of the most unlikable characters in the story. Like if you go back and listen to me and Kenny talking about the chapters, I think we complain more about Guofu than anybody else. But the thing that I like about the sort of hidden motive is that at least it makes sense that she chopped off his arm. Whereas if it was purely about the Wu brothers or purely about him,
that would be really petty.
Yeah.
That would be really petty.
And in the book, the way it's described, and it comes much later, it comes towards an upcoming scene in Passionless Valley, but they basically say it's like it's so deeply buried that she can't even like she's not even conscious of it, pretty much. Like she occasionally has flickers of understanding how she really feels towards Yangoa, and then it becomes like an aggressive, violent impulse. So I think, I don't know, it's interesting because I don't know if they explicitly state it in this show. I don't think they do, but the character kind of has that additional layer of depth when you read the story. And so, but the arm cutting scene, that is number one. The first time I saw it, I had no idea that he even lost an arm in the story, and so
yeah, me either.
It was horrifying. It was because again, this is what, episode 25. So you've been watching 25 episodes of a show of a character who's become so awesome at this point. His powers are astounding. He's really sort of reaching what seems like the apex of his abilities, and then his arm gets chopped off, and.
Yeah.
And I was so horror stricken when it first happened, when he ends up with the Divine Condor in the next series of scenes, and the Divine Condor is giving him the snake gallbladder. I remember thinking to myself, the gallbladder is going to make his arm grow back. Like
I was hoping. Yeah, I was hoping. I wasn't sure, but I was really hoping.
Yeah. But I don't think I've ever felt that much angst over something that happened to a character. Because and the reason why, I've seen much worse things happen to characters, but the reason why this one produced so much angst in me is he stays his hand for so long in the story before he pulls the trigger on this. It's a development that comes so late in the story that you've already invested all of your energy into Yangor, and you understand Yangor as a character who doesn't have a missing arm. Do you know what I mean? And so to suddenly throw that in there, it's really shocking. And I think it makes the character a lot more interesting, because I think there's something about having a character lose the arm. And granted, he overcomes the hurdle pretty quickly, but he still has to train. Like, there is a period of time where he's training with the Condor, and he has to overcome the obstacle.
Once I got over my horror, it's like as these episodes wore on, it's like, wow, now it's like, because you have all these great masters who are these highly eccentric, strange characters in this world, and it's like now he's the one-armed guy with the huge crazy sword. It's like now he's truly achieved his iconic status as this not being just like the hero character. Now he's got this kind of weird baggage to him as a hero, so it's like he has like graduated to another level now.
But yeah, so yeah, I and again, this is where the one-armed swordsman comes from. This is that story is definitely inspired by these developments. I mean, even down to how the daughter at the school behaves is very, very reminiscent of Guofu. Do you know what I mean? It's a So yeah, it's again, if anybody's seen the One-Armed Swordsman, you definitely want to see Return of Condor Heroes. And also, I think there's kind of an Empire Strikes Back like feel to what's going on here. There's that. I mean, you just can't help but think of those kinds of things. But yeah, so then we have the return of Jubatong, where he's got the flag of from the Mongol camp. And I don't know, Jubatong's always kind of a favorite. So, what are your feelings on Jubatong's return? And in particular, what are your feelings on his the scene where he and Zhao Longnu are sort of stuck in that cave together with the rainbow snow spiders, and you get like a lot of development there.
I enjoyed that scene a lot, and the whole element of him teaching her how to fight with separately with each hand. It was great because on the one hand they've kind of set this thing up of these two styles that need to be used in combination. They set that up way back in the story, and having the solution being that Zhao Batong is a guy who, when he was bored on Peach Blossom Island, would spend his time fighting with each hand like they were action figures. It's such a Zhao Batong thing to do that I'm like, all this coming together in this one scene. I'm like, oh, this is really good setup storytelling here. It was very satisfying for that all to fall into place.
Well, what I like about it too is he has the thing where he says, this is a really difficult technique. And not everybody can master it. Huang Rong was brilliant, and she couldn't master it. And Guo Jing, I think he compares him to a tree stump or a block of wood. He's able to master it really quickly. And so he says, but I don't think you can master it because you're not like Guo Jing. And she ends up mastering it pretty easily. And I think the thing that there's a commonality between her, Zhu Batong, and Guo Jing, and that they all kind of are. They're just different. Do you know what I mean? They're not like
they're very simple characters, really. But there's not a lot of. I mean, they're not. I'm not saying they're dumb or they're not interesting, but yeah, there is just a simplicity to each of those characters that makes perfect sense for them being able to master that.
And I think in the book, I can't remember exactly, but I think he says something like the reason that she must be able to master this is because her whole style revolves around controlling emotions and things like that. So her mind isn't racing. And the thing that made Huang Rong have difficulty is that her mind is all over the place. Yeah. She's thinking so many different things. I don't think they mentioned it in the scene, but in the book they get into that. And what I like about it is there's kind of this theme in both this book and in the previous book that being like value is not derived from intellect necessarily. And you see that in Guo Jing. He's not a smart guy, but he's one of the most important characters in the novel, and one of the smartest characters in the novel ends up falling in love with him. And I think that's again it's kind of nice. I like that because it's very tempting to have your hero be smart. It's not. I don't think it's easy to write a dumb hero. Do you know what I mean? And make him compelling and interesting and somebody that people would want to be. And that's kind of what they do here, and I just think that's like really good writing, really good characterization. But also this is where Zhao Longnu, she learns, I can combine Chuan Zhen and Jade Maiden style by wielding a sword in each hand. That's
exactly.
Yeah.
It was brilliant. I was just like, it just felt like things that have been floating around the background just all coming together in this one moment. And I very much enjoyed that scene. And
it also matched the scene with Li Mocho and Yanguo. Do you know what I mean? Remember they were in a cave being hounded by Jin Lun. And there was poison involved, but in this case it was Li Mocho's poison needles. And in this one, it's Zhao Longnu and Zhu Batong, and there's poison, but it's Jin Lun's rainbow snow spiders, which are really horrifying. In fact, I have a feeling this is where the Web of Death idea might have come from.
Okay.
But I'm not sure.
Web of Death did have some very very heavy influences from Condor Heroes. Like the whole thing of the heroine in that shows up as a disguised as a beggar, and then she shows up on a boat later by the water, like in her, with her real self and stuff. And like
Yeah.
it's just a straight out of like Legend of Condor
Well, you
Heroes.
know what it is?
So
It's a combination of all three. I think they blended like a lot of different elements from the whole trilogy because the bulk of that story
mhm.
is the Heaven Sword Dragon Saber plot line.
Okay, which I
Um,
don't know anything
which
about.
you'll
So
which you'll love, I'm sure. But we'll
yeah,
get to that eventually because Heaven
we
Sword
will,
Dragon
we
Saber
will.
is that's the one with Wuji, and it's a very special story, but it's very different from Legend and Return. It's kind of we can get into it later because we'll get distracted.
Yeah, we'll
Uh,
get there.
um, but yeah, it's a great scene, and also it really ups Jin Loon as a villain because he's got. I mean, these spiders are truly horrifying, and the fact that they're rainbow colored makes them even worse somehow. Like the fact that they're so. I don't think I've ever imagined a spider that looked like that. So it was. Uh, and rainbow snow spider especially. I don't. I'm from a northern climate. We don't really think of the only spiders we worry about are black widows. So it's unnerving to have a venomous spider that resides in a snowy climate to me. Um, but yeah, so and also at this point, Ji Bing and Ji Jing have paired up with Jin Loon and are traveling with him for protection. And this is I think mainly Ji Jing's doing. They've been there's this ongoing thing where Zhao Long Nu is trailing them on a
Yeah.
horse, and she's just basically stalking them. Like she's very slowly just kind of going after them because she overheard Ji Bing confess to putting the blindfold on her and all that, and now she wants revenge. And in the
Yeah,
book,
she
it's
gets very close to them, like the point where they're in, eating something inside. She's just standing outside. It's like it's not like she's literally chasing them like she's trying to catch them. She is just like you say, she's just stalking.
she's stalk. It's real in the book. It's really unnerving the way she does it because she's just like very. She's almost like a slasher movie villain the way that she's
Yeah.
handled. And and I think here they kind of get it too. Where again she's just kind of like staring at them, and it's like this is like like what she's not pulling the trigger on it at all. And so then when they find Jin Loon, they use him for protection, and he kind of uses that to help develop Ji Jing as sort of an ace up his sleeve to get Tuanzin sect to ally with the Mongols. And I mean, it's very interesting how all these complicated threads all really come together. It's a complete whole. Do you know what I mean? But there's like so
Yeah.
many, you could get so lost just following the individual strands of the thread. Um, but yeah, so they eventually do go back to Tuanzin sect and the scenes that later that which we'll talk about where uh, the Mongols are trying to strike up this alliance. But there's a whole extended sequence with Jubatong and all that, and eventually Jubatong gets poisoned by the spider, and it turns out that the jade bee honey is the cure, or the jade bee poison is the cure for the
Yeah.
for the
You
spiders.
have more poison fighting poison.
And not even Jin Loon knows that. Not even Jin Loon knows what the antidote is. He's got these poisonous spiders and he has no idea how to cure the venom. Which, by the way, that's a real like. Normally, you don't encounter that. Normally, most of these bad guys that have poisons have an antidote on their person, and so that says something about how confident he is about his own abilities. That he doesn't think he's going to get bit by these spiders.
Yeah, that's true. I hadn't thought about that. But yeah, it also says too. I mean, most of the people that use the poisons often use them as a negotiating tool in these
Mm.
stories too. Where they're like, "Okay, I poisoned you. If you want the antidote, there's often like something like that going on where something can be negotiated. But if you don't have an antidote, yeah, you're just dead. Sorry, you're gonna die. Nope, not even I can help you."
And so then we get the scene where Yangor goes and he finds Master Dooku's swords after the Condors help nurse him back to health. And
Yeah,
this is like, I mean, the closest thing I can compare it to in like a Western movie is like Dagobah. It's that kind of a sequence.
yeah,
And in the book,
yeah.
it feels a bit longer, but here I think they did a good job of establishing that it's a pretty solid, series of events where he first he gets nursed back to health by the Condor. then the Condor sort of urges him to go outside, and he finds the cliffside cave where the master has left his 3 swords. And the first one is swift and fierce, able to cut through anything. During my teenage years, I competed with it against heroes north of the Yellow River. And then the next sword is Purple Rose, flexible sword, used before age 30, accidentally injured a righteous man, and it became unlucky, so he abandoned it. And then the final one is this giant. So in the book, I think it's described a little differently, but it's giant and it's got blunt edges. And it says superiority in simplicity. Before the age of 40, it was used to roam the world. And then we find out that after 40, he didn't even use a sword. After 40, he no longer needed a weapon. Grass, wood, bamboo, or stones, they could all be used as swords. It's really, I mean, this is really fun genre material. But it's also super cool. And also, Dooku is a character. He appears, I think, in Smiling Proud Wanderer as well. But again, he's off camera. You never actually meet Dooku. He's just this figure who sort of looms and has this presence. And I don't know, the sword, it's this. I cannot explain in the show how giant it is. Would you say this is an enormous sword?
It's like kind of a Final Fantasy kind of weapon thing that is going on there.
Yeah, it's really big. And when they say simplicity in superiority and simplicity, I think what they mean is if you have a sword that heavy and that blunt, you do not waste motions with that kind of weapon. You're not doing all these little tiny movements with the sword. You make every stroke count. And so I think that's the idea behind the style that he's learning. And it also makes sense for a one-armed guy to use a sword like that. That he really can't afford the mistakes that somebody who has 2 arms can, because they might be able to parry with their other hand, for example. He won't be able to do that. So it's an interesting sword to give him. And then the Condor, who's gigantic, is a gigantic Condor, by the way, trains him in the river. It throws him off of a waterfall, and then he has to he basically is doing this thing where he's fighting the current with the sword, and he's developing his ability to wield the sword, and then he starts sparring with the Condor. And we can see this Condor in the book. It's more clear, but I think it's pretty clear here. The Condor wasn't just Dooku's companion; it was also kind of like a sparring partner. And it gets right up on the edge of, it's not quite fantasy, but it's pretty darn close to fantasy.
Pretty fantastical, without a doubt.
I would say preternatural. It's
as magical as the story has gotten, for sure.
Well, what I think the Divine Condor is just this unique animal. It's just this unique condor that happens to exist. It's not that these things populate the universe, but every once in a while, an exceptional animal arises from the rank of animals, and this is one of them.
That was the impression I got.
But there will be more animals down the road, just so you know.
Okay.
So anyways, I don't know. What was your feeling on? In the end, he sort of masters the training, and he stands up on a rock. And he explains to the Condor, like, it's been great, like, you're my friend, I have to go get revenge now because Guafu cut off my arm, but this has been a great experience being with you, brother Condor. What was your feeling on the whole thing?
Yeah, I like the whole thing with the swords, with each sword having its little story. That was nice. I mean, it's like, instead of, because I obviously could have had the scene with him finding the sword, but it's like, no, you get this whole little biography of the different swords he used over his lifetime. It gave the whole thing a little depth. And I like you, I like the moving beyond swords thing, because it showed that, like, this isn't this sword is a really badass sword, but even this isn't the ultimate weapon. The ultimate weapon is not needing a weapon. So it's like showing that it's like, he's Yang Guo's reached this cool stage, but it's like, you're not at the top yet. You're not close to the top yet. This is just the level you're at.
Yeah.
And
and we do see him get to that higher level. It's really cool watching this character develop, like, on the blueprint of this Dooku master guy.
That he tells the Condor is the only one that's been truly nice to him aside from his godfather and Xiang Nu. And I felt like you should have given a shout out to Granny Sun. I mean, come on,
You know,
you forgotten about her?
that's a good point. That's a very good point. She has been kind of forgotten about, and her sacrifice was probably the thing that really helped him get to where he is. Because that was
Yeah,
what got Jiao Long Nu to even take him on as a student. Um, so no Granny Sun, no Jiao Long Nu for you. Like that's a
yeah.
um,
That was key. She made a big sad. She cared about him, but oh well, kids.
But then he goes to settle things with Gofu after that, and he
Yeah,
arrives in Jiang, and or sorry, Zhangyang, and he overhears Huang Rong and Guojing talking about you the event that has happened, and and also they're sort of pondering Guafu's claims, because Guafu's story is, oh, he took my, because when she cut off his arm, she accused him of taking the baby and using it to get the antidote for the poison. And
yeah.
so Huang Rong mentions that, and Guo Jing is like, no, Yang Guo wouldn't do that. And so like he's pretty much deflecting any angles that Guo Fu was taking, and and uh, and then there's also a whole thing where he says, look, like I can't really think about my children right now because I'm trying to protect this city from the Mongols, and and uh, uh, and unfortunately, she Huang Rong lets slip that Guofu has returned, because she secreted her out of the city, or out of his viewpoint for a while, and he
Yeah.
thought that she wasn't around, and he immediately goes to her and he tries to cut off her arm. It doesn't. He doesn't just rush up and try to cut off her arm. There's a conversation where he says, like, look, I'm not angry at you. I'm just sad for you. And then he explains that.
Well,
Oh, go ahead.
so go on, go on.
No, you were gonna say something.
No, I was just gonna add. I thought you were skipping past something, but you might not be. So finish your. I was gonna.
Okay, if I might have missed something, but if I do, just bring my
Okay. Well,
attention.
I was going to say it was notable that he talked so much about what they owe the Yang family and so on, and when he brings up that Huang Rong didn't kill his father, but she was responsible
Oh
for it.
yeah, no, that's
So
true, and that happened at the scene when he's talking with Huang Rong, right? That was the
no, that was when he was talking to Guafu. He was telling
okay,
Guafu that. He said, "I've never
okay.
told you this before, but that's part of what we owe this
Oh yeah,
family." So anyway, he was basically telling Guafu why she should feel really bad about what she did.
and
And of course, yeah, Yang Guo is listening in on this scene
no,
too,
and
so he
that's
heard
and the
all of
look on his
that.
face is very ambiguous. We don't know what he's thinking. We know he's
Yeah,
thinking, but we don't know what he's thinking.
yeah,
And yeah, so he says, "I'm not angry. I'm only sad for you." And then he explains like the history that their family has with his family, and then what you said happens. He basically acknowledges that how Yang Kong died, and he says that but he also says, like, look, like, I felt responsible because I was supposed to get him to turn over a new leaf
hmm
as the senior brother, and he didn't, and so I was trying. I hope to marry you off to him, as in a way, because I was felt guilty, and then and obviously he died because of she wasn't directly responsible, but he did die because of Huang Rong, because he touched. I don't know, did he specify how, or did he just say that
He
she
says
was
no. He did not specify how. He
okay?
just said that she was something like she was responsible, or he died because of Huang Rong, is what he said.
And
If I
so yeah, that's okay. That's it. Yep, that's how it was phrased. And then he says our family owes the Yang family too much. And then and then she starts saying, "Oh, but then he was like a bully to me, and he was doing this." And he was like, "No. You
remember.
chopped off his arm, and now you're trying to say that he's a bully." Like, he's like, "I'm not gonna allow this." And then he says, "Where's the sword that you cut off his arm with?" And he goes and he grabs the sword, and then he sort of like is just looking at it, and very chillingly he says, "A person must have a clear conscience in whatever he does." And if somebody
Yeah,
says that while they're holding a sword, you don't want to be in the room. And then he says, "I love," then he like assures her, "I love you very much," and but I will never cover up for my daughter. And he says, "You cut off one of Yango's arms, so I have to cut off one of your arms." And he tries to cut off her arm. He doesn't just think about it. He tries to, and Huang Rong steps in and blocks the attack. And then she ends up paralyzing him, putting him into bed, and taking his medallion. And then she's like, I'll come back to apologize later. I'm gonna get her out of the city, and
Yeah,
she
and
gets.
she never actually comes back, if I recall.
Well, I think the sense of timing is just very delayed. I think she will come back, but
Oh, yeah,
yeah.
I just meant that when she says it, it sounds like I'll be back in about an hour to unparalyze you, but it's like no, no,
Well, it's one of these
no.
things where one thing leads to another. So she takes
Of
she
course,
takes
of course.
Guafu to the neighboring town. Yengor follows them, and while she's there, she goes to get some food. And behind her, she hears Lee Mocho talking with a baby, and she turns
Yeah,
around, and so she starts following Lee Mocho, and and then but the thing that's interesting about this is she doesn't say, "Hey, give me back my baby." She says, "Oh, whose baby is that?" And
yeah.
Lee Mocho's like, "Oh," and there's a whole exchange where she's like, "Oh, you're Huang Rong. I'm very happy to meet you. You're a very reputable martial hero." There's like a polite exchange, and then she's like, "This is a great shame of my sect. This is the illegitimate daughter of Zhao Long Nu, and the father is her own disciple, Yanguo." And in the book, she's even like the disgust is just even more apparent than the way. But I don't know. I just like. I really like this, and I've said this repeatedly, but I like this aspect of Lee Mocho where she's so hung up on all of these issues surrounding the propriety of Zhao Longnu's relationship with Yangor, but she's going around murdering people all the time, and
Well, what struck me as funny is it's like she's concerned about the reputation of the sex, but there's no evidence that this is Zhao Longnu's baby. She's been told by everyone that it's not Zhao Longnu babies. It's a fact she invented herself, but she's so hung up on this imaginary fact she invented that she's now telling other people of this great shame to her sect that she's
that's
completely
true.
invented. It's
No,
like it's
I
just
will say
insane.
she has very good evidence. Zhao Longnu was carrying the baby when she first saw it, so it was a natural assumption that Zhao Longnu was the mother. But number two, Yangor did say that that he was willing to die for Zhao Longnu, and she was present during that whole scene where uh, so there's
It's a little circumstantial to
but
me.
but you can see how a brain like Lee Mocho's brain would put those two things
Oh
together.
yeah, I know.
Yeah,
I see why how Lee Mochu would
yeah.
say it, but that's my point though. It's
Mm.
like that the fact that is just my point is Lee Mochu's brain is very strange. Is my
Well,
point.
she is, and we even get a good like we know like it's interesting because Louis Cha has this habit of, I mean, you see it explicitly when he talks about like how people look like this person's more attractive than this person, but even
Uh-huh.
with things like intellect, you get a sense of charting going on with the characters. And you see it here where Lee Mocho is like, look, I'm not as smart as you, Huang Rong. Like she just
Yeah.
and you start to realize, oh yeah, Lee Mocho, she isn't like she's not like she's not like Gua Jing, but she's not the brightest character in the book. She's
No.
easily
Yeah.
misunderstands things, and
Yeah.
um, and so
I brought up in the cave scene like previously, where it's like where Yanguo was like, oh, it's like, hey, I found an escape route where he's trying to trick the others. She's like, where? And it's just
yeah,
like, no, that was no.
but she's such a powerful character and so ferocious. You don't even
Yeah,
notice it about her until those few. It sort of slips in. Um,
yeah,
but so then there's this whole battle over the baby that they have because Huang Rong asks to see the baby, and Li Mocho is about to give it to her, and then she leaps back and says, "Oh no, you just want to give it to Yango, don't you?" And so they have a big battle. There's a whole thing where Huang Rong places the baby in like an area that she's kind of protected with those little diagrams and made out of vines and stuff, so that no
yeah,
animals can get to it. And they fight, and Huang Rong wins. And Huang Rong, she wins very cleverly. She puts an apple under her gown, and she lets Li Mocho's attack hit the apple. And then when Li Mocho goes to push the needles in further, they stick into Li Mocho's hand, and she gets poisoned by her own needle. And so by doing that, she's number one able to get the antidote for the poison. But number two, she's able to defeat her. And when she
yeah.
Oh, go ahead. You were going to say
I was
something?
gonna say, I was surprised that Huang Rong did win that little encounter with the darts because I thought the irony was going to be we just had in a previous scene her giving away her protective vest
Mm.
to Guafu, and I was like, oh no, is it gonna be she just gave her vest away and now here's when she really needed it? But so yeah, I was like, whew.
Yeah, no, I mean she's not out of the woods yet, but yeah, that's it's
Well, yeah, no one's
um,
ever out of the woods.
in this scene, anyways, and so she gives Lee Mocho a choice. She says, "Look, you were the baby." She basically, yeah, this is a choice that we've seen before. It happened with the Master of Peach Blossom, not Peach Blossom, the Master of Passionless Valley, with him and his what was his lover's name, Rua or
Uh,
something. I can't remember
I,
her name, but his the woman he was having an affair with the uh,
mm, yeah, I can't recall her name, but I recall
um,
the character.
but he was given that same choice by his wife, and so it's kind of interesting. And yeah, her
Yeah.
name is Rule, and so uh, Lee Mocho says, okay, just save the baby, and Huang Rong is pretty impressed by this and says, okay, you're not as bad as I thought, so I'm gonna let you live, and I'll just leave you here. And she throws the pill into her mouth, and then she goes to get the baby, and it's missing, and Yango has taken it. And so this is when she and Li Mocho kind of team up and go back and meet up with Guafu, and I think the rest of the episode they're sort of going at the. Wang Rong believes what's going on is Yango is still, he's proud but he's not vindictive, and he's just taking the baby so that he can have, like, kind of get back at them and make them worry, but he's ultimately going to give it back to them. And Guafu is like, no, he's a terrible person. He's going to do whatever he wants to the baby, and we like need to go kill, and so, but what they've deduced is he's probably gone back to Ancient Tomb to find Zhao Longnu, and so that's where they're heading. And I think in the next scene, we probably start to suspect they're correct, because the next scene is at Tuanzhen sect, where all the events with the Mongols occurred that we were talking about, and it's here that Huodu shows up and presents an edict from the Khan saying that he wants to form some kind of alliance with Tuanzhen sect. He wants them to submit to them, and wouldn't you know it, all of the masters are in seclusion because they were so concerned about Yango and Zhao Longnu's abilities that they've gone in and tried to perfect a technique that'll help them contend with them, and so that leaves Ji Bing as the representative of the sect. And unfortunately, that also means Ji Jing is one of the most influential people in the room when they discuss what they should be doing, with this
Yeah.
edict, because they ask for a moment to discuss it. And it ends with Ji Jing kicking a guy named Wang, who's like, look, anybody who says we should submit to this request is a villain. And he pretty much calls out Ji Jing. He's like, what are you like, and it's interesting the arguments they're making, because Ji Jing is making these really sort of questionable arguments about, well, in the past we worked with the Mongols, and they were like, yeah, but that's when the Mongols were helping us fight the Jin, and now the Mongols are invading us. So, and Ji Jing just kind of continues down the path of like, well, if if we worked with the Mongols then, why can't we work with them now? It doesn't make sense to
Yeah.
go against the precedent that existed. And
Yeah, it was not a good
it,
argument, but
it feel
apparently he's going to try and win the argument by punching people. So,
that's yeah, it was very reminiscent of an internet flame war. It had that kind of
yeah, definitely. No, it was not. Yeah, it's interesting to see what's going to happen, and you can't really count on Ji Bing to make a good decision. He's not a reliable character.
no. The two of them are very, but Xi Jing is especially getting like
Well, he's
Xi,
just a straight up villain. It's
yeah,
just
Xi,
Ji Bing is just it's like his villainy is more pathetic.
yeah. Xi Bing is somebody you just want him to kind of die and get it over with, and he kind of
Yeah.
wants it too. And Xi
Yeah.
Jing, you want him to die and get it over with, but he absolutely does not want to die. He wants to go on and continue with his villainy, and he doesn't seem at all conflicted about it. And so he keeps upping the scale as the story goes on. But yeah, so that's where the episode ended. Did I leave out anything in our discussion?
I think we got through all the big points. Yeah. Well, we didn't talk much. Well, we did talk about that. Yeah. But I have to say, yeah, one thing I enjoyed was the scene of the flag stealing scene where it's like, oh look, it's the flag, and they're all excited about it. And it's like I like the way they shot that because it's like, you don't see Zhao Batong at first. You see the flag and you see it's on a donkey.
Yeah.
And it's just this weird angle, and it's just like I'm like, wait, something. No, this isn't right. Before you even see that it's been stolen, I like the uncertainty they created with that shot. That was very well done.
I really like his beard in this scene too. Like it wasn't as visible to me before, but now it's almost got like a golden retriever like glow to it. His beard. It's a really nice mane. It just really fits the character.
Yeah, it does.
And yeah, the flag scene was great. The flag scene's a really fun scene, and that's what leads to the spider cave. That's where the flag is hidden, and that's how he ends up getting poisoned by the spiders. Jin Moon is being very, very deceptive throughout this whole thing.
Yeah, he is. I like Zhao Batong almost thwarting their plot when Jijing comes along and is like, oh, I know where the flag is. Like, don't tell me, you're gonna ruin the game. It's like, no, I gotta find it on my own. And
there was a scene with the gunpowder where he tells there's gunpowder.
Yeah, it's good. I mean, I like the way this story kind of balances things out. We just had a lot of heavy drama going on, and this is just a nice different tone to add to the story.
Yeah, no, and I mean, and it definitely, I feel like it's, I don't know, I was curious how you were going to react when the arm chopping scene came, because that was very, it's a very big transition in the story, but
it is, yeah. Well, it's Guao Fu's been she's never been a positive character in the story, but she's been kind of more of an annoyance, as far as her behavior up till this point.
Yeah, her capacity to do harm is really becoming clear at this point in the story, and I think it's also becoming more clear again, like we were saying last time. She's obviously inherited like the least pleasant qualities of both of her parents, and none of their good qualities, it seems. And it seems to be purely a product of the fact that she was kind of spoiled and not even to the point that like Huang Rong is still kind of spoiling her. Like she can't really stop with the spoiling. Now, granted, preventing her arm from getting cut off, that's a pretty reasonable thing.
That was reasonable, but it's more, when she's talking to Guo Jing before that scene, and she's going, well, she's learned her lesson. She feels bad about it. And anytime you see anyone talk to her, she's like, he was bullying me. It was his fault. It's like she's learned nothing. She learned, there's no indication that she's got any, she's upset that she cut off his arm because it's created problems, but she's not willing to accept that she did this horrible thing to him. It's his fault.
No, she is one of these characters that will not accept blame for anything. She like getting her to admit to a wrong is an impossibility. It seems. And I think we've all known people like that. It's that kind of thing. But again, I still like that. She's one of the least likable characters, but you just by the fact that she's present through the whole book, and you get to see some flickers of positive qualities in her, you end up having very conflicting feelings about Guo Fu by the end of the story, I think. And it's not ever neatly sort of, like, oh, she's finally reformed. It's never quite hits that. It's still in, like, the point she gets to is still very in keeping, I think, with the character. So yeah, but this will all be pretty interesting as we get towards the end. The one thing I will say is I think this series does not handle the epilogue material as well as the books. Like when we get to the end of the show, you might want to read like the last chapter of the book, just because I feel like they kind of.
Okay.
I could be wrong, but I remember them kind of snipping out or glossing over some of those details. Hopefully, I'll be wrong.
Epilogues are tough to do in a book, well, a show or a movie. I find generally.
Well, the reason it's important is Heaven, Sword, Dragon, Saber makes a lot more sense if you get the epilogue material. So that's why it's.
Oh yeah, well, I definitely want to move on to that. So yeah, I mean, if nothing else, I will read the epilogue to the book.
But yeah, so why don't we call it here, because we've been going for 45 minutes, and we'll be back on this Friday with Ashes of Time, which I'm curious what people are going to have to say about this movie. It's a very unusual film, and so I don't know what the opinions are going to be in the room. But I imagine that we'll have a wide variety of them. And so we'll be back on with other things in the coming weeks as well. And until then, we will talk to everyone later.